Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. Today's guest is a filmmaker, blogger, novelist, and esotericist. He has lived and worked in Madrid, San Francisco, Miami, Valencia, New York, China, and a few other not-so-interesting places. All three of his novels, including his latest release, Your Love Incomplete, are available as free downloads on Smashwords. He has been published in some of the leading alternative media sites, including Counterpunch, LouRockwell.com, Global Research, the Mountain Astrologer, and many more. In July of 2018, he released his documentary on the major arcana of the tarot, The 21 Faces of God. Welcome to the show, Robert Bonomo.
How you doing, Matt? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for reaching out and coming on, man. I'm excited to get into this. So I guess we can start with a little bit of your background. You did a documentary in the tarot, but you're also a writer. You're also an esotericist. Right. You're kind of, and before even the show started, we talked a little bit about like who you converse with and the kind of conversations you have. So I guess the best way to start is just a little bit on your background and how you got to do in the documentary. And then I know we can dive into wherever we want to go.
So I would say, I think it was about 2010, I was doing a novel and I wanted to look for a structure to the novel. And it came to me, why don't I use the major arcana of the tarot, right? There's 22 cards in the major arcana. I could do 22 chapters and each chapter could follow, basically the card. But I really didn't know that much about the cards. So as I began to get into the cards, it's kind of a rabbit hole. I began to think, you really can't understand the major arcana unless you understand astrology. So I went down the astrology hole. So it took me a couple of years to write that novel. And then I just kept going with the cards. I started becoming a card reader. And then I realized, at least I hadn't seen a film that actually showed not what each card meant when you're doing a reading, but what's the path? What is that path of the Fool through the major arcana? And does it mean anything? Or are they just random cards? And I found, I believe there is a path there. So I decided to make a film on it. So the film has 5 introductory parts that go into the duality, the archetypes, the structure, the origins, that thing. And then it follows each card and shows kind of a path to waking up. And so that's what I attempted to do. And it took me 2 years. So it was a lot of work. But I released it basically in August. I got it all together and finally out there, and it's doing really well. The response has been great.
Awesome. Well, do you want to explain, I guess, for somebody who's not familiar at all, like let's break it down for them. Like what is the tarot? What is the major arcana? And then we can I would love to discuss either that flow and what you learned from doing it, or maybe even like some of the cards, because for me, each trait, each card we can apply and we can dive deep and we can really dissect. And it is, the things that we experience being human, being here, we're all going to be able to relate to each card in our own way.
Yeah, exactly. So the tarot began as a card game. So the Mamluks in Egypt had a card game, and it's very similar to the cards we use today. You had 1 through 10, and then they had 3 court cards. And this game went into Italy probably like in the 12th, 13th century, somewhere around there. And it was just basically a game, maybe a gambling game. Then what happened in the 1400s, late 1300s, early 1400s in Italy, to this game, which had at that time 56 cards, they added 22 trump cards. So imagine this game as a game of like bridge. These trump cards were added and they trumped the pips, the lower cards. But what's interesting was they were created as probably the most important archetypes of medieval, early Renaissance Italy. And it's fascinating, not only these 22 cards as archetypes, but the order they were put in. Now, the original cards had no numbers, but there did seem to be an order that later on numbers were added. So think of it as a game the 56 is kind of the game cards, and these 22 added. Now, I believe if originally they probably were added, it was just a game. But I also think whoever created those, the major arcana, was very much involved, I think, with alchemy. And in my film, I can't prove it. I don't have any data. But there are some images, alchemic images, and some of the card images that I think match. So I think there's a real influence of alchemy there. And now later on, there began an esoteric tradition around the cards, probably around the 17th, 18th century. And then in the 19th century, it became very powerful. Know that the tarot had this esoteric meaning to it through divination and whatnot. But that's basically the story in a nutshell.
Got it. Great. Yeah, no, that's well, I didn't hear about the alchemy bit. I'm wondering if you can elaborate on that, just describing like what alchemy is and the relation between the tarot.
Yeah, this is something that I found really interesting because so alchemy means alchem, the black. So this comes from Hellenistic Egypt. What alchemy is, traditionally the idea was turning lead into gold, but also it's accelerating nature. So the whole natural process of accelerating nature on the material plane, but also on the spiritual plane. Now, this tradition returned to Europe in like the 12th or 13th century through Spain, through the Arabic world, through Spain. There's the translations of these old alchemic texts started coming into Europe right at the time that the major arcana appeared. And in the 14th and 15th century, you'll see, I'm sure you've seen those images, those alchemic images. They're like 22 images in order. You'll see, I have a lot of them in the film, like, there's many of them that are, for example, there's one in the film I use of a guy putting another guy in an oven.
Oh, well, I probably come across them, but if I see the list, I'll be like,
yeah.
Is there one of them where the guy is coming out of the firmament? Is that one of them?
Yes.
Got it. Yeah.
And there's some that they come out of a well, you see, or coming out of a tomb. There's lots of them.
Yeah.
And there are some alchemic, usually the alchemic images come in sets. So there might be sets of 12, 16, 20. And it is interesting that the major arcana come in 22. So in the film on the section on origins, I try and at least insinuate that there's a connection. Now, I'm sure a lot of your listeners are interested in Jung, the psychologist Carl Jung.
Probably.
Jung saw a real connection between the Hellenistic Gnostic thought and alchemy. He saw it as modern alchemy. And that's why Jung spent, especially towards the end of his life, a lot of time talking about alchemy. He saw psychoanalysis as alchemy, accelerating the natural process of development. So for Jung, alchemy is crucial. It's crucial. And I have to say, of all the sort of esoteric fields, the one that probably most fascinates me and is the most enigmatic, elusive is alchemy. It's fascinating because you really never know. Are they talking about metal? I think in some sense they are, but they're also talking about themselves. The lead of the material world and the gold of the spiritual world. Saturn, the sun, the earth. It's fascinating.
Yeah, 100%. I think it was Robert Grant that I was having a conversation with. He's been on the podcast and he's recently made some mathematical discoveries. And so he then was planning a trip to Egypt and he was just sharing all this esoteric knowledge and Gnosticism and all these incredible images that were just blowing my mind and giving me a lot of information. But one of the points I remember us discussing was what is alchemy? And, the traditional thought is lead to gold, right? That's the physical manifestation by inner and outer. And one of the ideas that I've heard, I can't remember where the heck I got it from, but it was you take the alchemy and it's taking that lead of life, let's say all the challenge, all the dirt, all the darkness, all the hate, all the stuff, and you basically alchemize it within yourself to give you the fuel to produce the gold, to bring you to the desires, to bring you to the light realm, or however you want to create it. In one sense, you could just take a simple idea of I'm walking on the street and somebody calls me a loser and doesn't like me, and then my response is to beat them up, rather than alchemizing all those crappy emotions that I have of like feeling less than and not good about myself, and just holding that. But that actually will bring me the fuel for the own, acceleration of my own conscious understanding of what this reality is. I'm not sure, is that sound in any way like what you've looked at?
That would be totally it, especially if you look at it from the psychoanalytical point of view. No, Jung saw this as the alchemy of transforming yourself. And like you said, you have an event in life, maybe something from your childhood or youth or whatever, that you're stuck. And the alchemy is turning that lead, just like you said, that lead into something transcendent. Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's, from a psychological point of view, that's really it.
Cool. Yeah, I totally agree. I love that idea, and I totally agree with it, because it seems to make sense to me. And a lot of people will talk about, transformation, going from 3D to 5D, or enlightenment. And that reminds me of this Matt Kahn. Do you know who Matt Kahn is?
I don't think so.
He's a pretty dope spiritual teacher. I haven't seen a lot of his work, to be honest, but what I have seen is really great. And he just talks about the fastest road to enlightenment is just taking the high road. It's just like enlightenment is like when you're met with something in your environment, and you could go down the low road, if somebody cuts you off, so you cut them off, flip them the bird or whatever. It's just like, as you consistently take the high road, that's the highest, fastest way to a more evolved sense of being. So it's kind of the same idea of like what we're speaking about here is like alchemizing, because it doesn't feel good when someone is crappy to you. It doesn't feel good when you get wronged. It doesn't feel good when you have that experience, and that's like that darkness, that challenge. And if we can alchemize that within ourselves, we're going to be the ones that benefit. It's not really gonna, hurt that other person when we do that action. It actually more hurts us than the person that we're upset with. You can go ahead if you'd like.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring in one of the tarot cards here, the Devil. Because the Devil is a little bit that feeling. Like, imagine someone cuts you off and you just have the urge to get out and just beat the shit out of them, right? But we have to remember, that's a natural reaction. As humans, we have those reactions. We're hardwired that way. And maybe at some time in our past that was useful, right? If someone threatened us, we went directly after them. So I think you have to be a little bit careful in saying, avoid that part of yourself. The alchemy is integrating it. So understanding that you're a violent person, other people are violent, but do I have to always be violent? Do I need to jump into the fight? No, but maybe occasionally in your life you have to be violent, right? I mean, we can't live in fantasy land either. I mean, this world is no paradise. It's not Disneyland, and hey, and there might be a point in your life when you actually need to be violent. Could be, right? You know what I'm saying? That we can't deny our humanity.
Yeah.
But you got to integrate it,
Yeah, 100%. It's so it's the reality of our experience. If there is a situation where you need to protect yourself or do something, it might come to that. There is a reality. Yeah. And I remember having these discussions with certain people, and there's an old Zen story around something similar where, the Zen master gets violent and he just like, messes somebody up, and like, why would you do that? He was like, because he was threatening me. You know what I mean? He's like, that's the whole story. It's this big long story. And the end of it, he just basically whoops him as this like master. He's like, he threatened me. Like, that's a real thing. You want to, alchemize and make the best response you can. But also, we are in a dangerous environment. So we got to treat it as such. And I had a question. The devil thing, brings up a lot for me, just in the sense of like seeing it as a catalyst to evolve, not necessarily like this is the most terrible thing. This is an opportunity for you to evolve through some sort of challenge. But I wanted to ask a question that you phrase it, the 21 faces of God. Is that a common reference that these are God archetypes, or Where did you
No,
get
I think I actually pulled that out of the air, I think. Because I'll tell you why. There's 56 pip cards, right? Then you have the Fool. Now, the Fool is numbered 0. Esoterically, for example, the Pythagoreans, remember, 0 is a pretty modern conception. The ancient Greeks did not use 0. For them, it was meaningless. 0, how could you have 0? Remember, 0 is a number that comes more from math related to accounting of money. You can have 0 money, but you can't have 0 apples. There's no such thing as a 0 apple, right? You have 1 apple or you have 2 apples, but there are no 0 apples. So the Fool is kind of in between the major and the minor. So in the film, I put the Fool in the middle and I show the 21 cards around him. And I use the 21 faces of God as these are the 21 reflections, the 21 archetypes, right? So think of it as above, so below, right? The Fool is reflected in the 21, and the 21 are reflected in the Fool. And for example, I used to study a lot of Zen. I'm fascinated by Zen. And I never forget a Zen story where the master was talking about a lamp and just focus on the lamp. And in that moment of opening up, you are the lamp. No, you can see the world in the lamp. And the lamp is reflecting the world. No, it's the same idea. It's the exact same idea. So that's why I use the 21 faces of God, because now I'm not saying these are the only archetypes or the path, but it is a very interesting way to see it, especially from the Western tradition, as the 21 archetypes that make up not only ourselves, but our path, our path to waking up.
Yeah, interesting. And so you talked about that a little bit at the beginning. Is that kind of how you did the documentary, where you start as the Fool, or you could just be the baby and you're like, you don't know? And another way to say Fool is asleep or just in illusion, right? In Buddhism, they'll call the veil, right? You're just in illusion, so you don't know.
Exactly. But there is a certain, in Zen, they have that saying of Zen. There's a beautiful Zen book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, by Shunro Suzuki. It's a fabulous book. It's that beginner's mind. So the Fool has that innocence, and you need that innocence. You need that innocence in Zen, and you need it in the Western tradition too. You have to come in kind of thinking you know everything, before you slowly realize you don't know. No, and that it's a little bit that. So yeah, so what I do is I take the Fool and I bring him through all those 21 cards, what each card does to him, what it reflects in him, and how it transforms him.
Right. That sounds awesome. Well, maybe you want to discuss some of that there, because I'm interested in it. And the first thing that comes up to me is, we're in a world of duality, and each of these cards is sharing some sort of archetype that we all have, or something that we're going to experience in our life. That's why Zen and Buddhism, it breaks down to like some simple things like life is suffering, life is frustrating, life is change. It's constantly change. That's just true. It's just a truth that, we need to deal with. And so, life is also duality. You've got the light, dark, up, down, good or bad. But the thing is, from this center point of like no mind, there is no good or bad. It's two sides of the card. It's the same coin. It's just an experience that you might be going through at that time. So that's not a question. Maybe you can just say something on it.
No, but I have a whole section on duality. I think it's section 3, I think, 4, after archetypes, duality. The tarot is full of duality. For example, the lovers. You have the male and the female. When you get to the devil, I just so because a lot of folks are probably just listening. I use the Rider-Waite deck. So if you just imagine the Rider-Waite deck with the lovers, you have the male and the female. When you get with an angel, when you get to the devil, you have the male and the female chained to the devil instead of to the angel. That duality it's just constant in the tarot. It's so similar. It's similar to Zen in many, many ways.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. So I was pulling up the deck, so maybe I can do a screen share and then I can show some people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do you want to, like, what do you think the best way do you want to kind of just explore a few of the cards, or is there a better way that
Yeah.
I can phrase this to kind of go through? But I think that taking the Fool, which is, yeah, a better way to phrase that is the beginner's mind. You know, when you're
Right, right.
in Zen, they'll say the cup is full, so there's no more knowledge. So my overall question with this is, how can we use the tarot and what you've discovered to improve our lives, to know ourselves better, and to assist in our own evolution, our own awakening? And I think that maybe what this process is, like kind of what you've shared, is like, this is the process of each individual's awakening. And what does that even mean? Like, can you, if you're asleep, or you quote unquote asleep, can you know that you're asleep? And if you're awake, do you know you're awake? And what is the difference? And how can the tarot support that? That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. But that is a very interesting question. How do you know you're asleep? No? It's like, remember that scene in The Matrix? He says, a splinter in your mind. That always stuck with me, that idea that that goes a little bit back to the Gnostics. When the Gnostics insisted that there's something wrong with this world. And I think that inner sense that something is not right is a good indication, no? And I think it comes a little bit with age too. I mean, there are people who are precocious, obviously, who get it young. But when I was 25, I was interested in the things of this world. But you begin to get a little bit older, and it doesn't satisfy you. That's why this is going off on a bit of a tangent. But I wrote an article about zombies. We're all zombies. It actually had a pretty interesting reaction, and it's a little bit that zombie meme where you eat, but you're always hungry. You're never satisfied. And that feeling of not being satisfied and constantly needing more and more and more, I think is an indication that something's starting to move, no? Because let's face it, there are a lot of people who are happy, and that's great. God bless them. No, I mean, I'm not there to shake their world around. But those people who feel like, something's not right, then the tarot can really help. Like Zen can help, like God knows how many things can help you, This is just one of many.
Right. Yep. I totally agree. So I pulled up the cards.
Cool.
And so they go now. Do you think the order has relevance to the process? The first one on your deck is the Magician. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Is that the right deck?
Right. So you go, the Fool is 0, the Magician will be 1, and then the High Priestess will be 2.
Yep.
And then the Empress. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start with the Magician. Tell me everything.
So the Magician, in my opinion, is the alchemist. He is the alchemist. And if you notice on the table, there's a cup. You see he has a cup. He has a sword. There you go. Oh, perfect. Excellent. This is perfect. Now, if you see, he has the cup, he's got the sword, he's got the wand, and he has that disc, the pentacle. Those are the 4 elements: air, water, fire, and air. No? I'm sorry, air and fire, and water and earth. Okay? Now, what he does, he's taken the Fool, okay, and he's broken them up into 4 parts. The next 4 cards, the High Priestess and the Empress, are the 2 feminine aspects, or if you want to call it, the 2 feminine elements, water and earth. Okay? Now, the High Priestess is that watery, kind of moonish, right? She's often associated with the moon, that feminine intuition towards what is true, no? But it's secretive. It's kind of a little bit cancerish, no? The Empress, she's Venus. That's earth, earthly beauty, the goddess Venus, right? That's earth. Then you get the Emperor, that masculine energy of fire, of fighting, of destruction. The Hierophant, dogma, the rules, the Pope. Then what happens in the Lovers, the 2 feminine aspects come together in the woman, and the 2 masculine come together in the man, and they're brought together. And then the next card, the Chariot, that's those two lions, the black and the white, the masculine and the feminine, and the driver. So it's really interesting. If you look at the lovers and then look at the chariot, you see how you get the two and the spirit above them, and then you get the driver and the two. It's the same thing. It's the same card. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's showing the same thing. Now, those 7 cards are the earth aspects. So if you think of a person as body, soul, and spirit, the 3, right? Those first 7, that would be the body. And the chariot is dominating the body. Now, what's interesting about the chariot, that card is definitely associated with Plato's allegory of the chariot. The allegory of the chariot is the gods have a chariot, right, with 2 horses, 2 spiritual horses, and they go around the earth, right? But man has 1 spiritual horse and 1 earthly horse. One wants to go to heaven, one wants to go to hell. And you got to balance those 2, right? Now, the second row of cards, the second 7 cards, those would be the psychic level, the soul level. And that's why strength is such an important card, because that card is dominating the ego. In the chariot, it's all ego, right? But in strength now, you've got to begin to separate. You're not just your ego. There's something there. Like before, remember we were talking about when you begin to wake up?
Yeah.
That's really in strength. Because what she's doing is she's dominating those material desires for domination, revenge, sex, food, all these things, no? The hermit's introspection. You begin to go inward. The fortune card is fascinating because that's when you disassociate yourself from fate. Imagine, someone says, oh, I just got a raise. Oh, life is great. I just got fired. Oh, it's horrible. When you begin to disassociate yourself from Maya and understand that you aren't that Maya, that's the fortune card. Now, justice is a very important card because this is the goddess Athena.
Wait 1 sec.
Uh-huh.
This is all, no, not at all. I just wanted to draw that point of what you just said about the Maya, because I think it's a very important thing to focus on for just a second as you go through this process. Because for me, I'm learning as you go along more depth of what the cards mean and things like that. I've heard things here and there, but whatever. So I'm getting a little bit more of a in-depth knowledge. So when you separate from the Maya, like you separate from what happens, you are beyond that, you're transcending that. That's such a key thing that I think where most of humanity is right now. Like, okay, I've got a job, life is better. I lost my job, life isn't as good. I got a girl, life is okay. I lost a girl, life isn't okay. And so when you can begin to step back from that, I think that is part of what you're alluding to in that idea also is the ability to create your reality too. So you're influencing some of it, but ultimately there's this bigger aspect. So we don't need to attach to the physical realm in the same way that we're doing when we're fully immersed in it. Like everything material is our whole life. You start to gain that strength, which is a new understanding, and you're able to let go of what you used to believe are the most important things to you. Is that somewhat
I think absolutely. Like, think about it. For example, a lot of people are traumatized by love. You fall madly in love with somebody, and they leave you. Life is over. Oh my God! But if you can reach after the introspection of the hermit at the Wheel of Fortune, if you can realize, I really do love this person, but if they want to go, I can let them go. It's sad, but you understand that it's not directly related to you. There's something else going on, no? And that's always a good way to, or for example, when you lose a job you love, or you don't get a job you like, or you lose a lot of money, those are difficult lessons, no? But when you realize that isn't you, you're something else. Like in a lot of, even in Zen, who is listening? Who is the one it's the same with the fortune card. If you were taking it more from an Eastern standpoint, it would definitely be that. That's a great point, though.
Yeah, and I think that's really well. Also, it's almost halfway through the deck. Interestingly enough, right? This is the turning point of the deck into a different paradigm, a little bit of a, if you do alchemy, light and dark, and you look at the world and, darkness is greed and envy and anger and all of the low emotions that make you feel low. And part of that is materialism and lust and greed and materialism. I think I might have said that twice, but it's important. So we attach all of our worth on our gold and our Mercedes in the driveway and acquisition of things, regardless of the impact it's having on all the other life that's here. You don't care. You're in your own, this is the competition mindset. But on the other side, with that higher picture, you realize it's not all about that. There's an element at play, and it feels like it's the most real because we're in this physical reality. This is the most real, so it's the most important, and we need to protect it. And when our thinking begins to switch a little bit, and I'm reminded of that Zen. I love how we're doing lots of Zen tarot. This would be like the Zen tarot podcast because they're so important, and that's why in Zen and Buddhism and real, what I think older philosophies on, let's say, consciousness or personal development or ideologies and way to live, they're dealing with the same thing because it's the same stuff. We are all dealing with the same stuff of mind and evolution of thought. But that old Zen story where the farmer, he has a horse and the horse runs away and his neighbor comes over and says, "Oh, you've lost your horse. So terrible. I feel so bad for you." Right. Then 2 days later, the horse comes back with 10 other horses and his neighbor comes over and is like, "Oh, what great luck." And the farmer says, "Maybe." Then his son is breaking in the horse and he breaks his leg and the neighbor comes over and is like, "Oh, what terrible luck. Oh no, now everything is terrible again." And the farmer says, "Maybe." And then a few days later, the military comes to conscript his son and take him to war, but he can't go to war because his leg is broken. And the neighbor comes over and says the same thing. So he's experiencing that exact thing, that exact analogy. That's that card. That's the entire idea, is like, we don't know if it's good or bad. We're just observing this kind of wheel from a different perspective, a little bit more awareness. And we're not like tied and lassoed to the horse of our life that's just going through whatever it's going through, the woods and the trees, and we're just getting like flung along. We have a little bit more of a separation from what's happening.
That was a brilliant explanation of the Wheel of Fortune. Perfect. And I'd love, because I remember that Zen story. It's a very famous Zen story. That's a perfect example of the Wheel of Fortune. Exactly. I should have put that in the film. You should have told me that before.
Version 2. Yeah, I'm good. And that's why I wanted to kind of like focus there for a second, because for me, that's a turning point card as I'm learning as I go along with you. So I just wanted to share that. So you can feel free to add on to anything you wish or continue. I didn't mean to cut you off with the justice, but I felt like that was a really good turning point for us to dive a little deeper on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's just to review a little bit. So with the strength card, you begin to realize that you're not the ego, but that takes introspection also. No, you've got to turn in. And then just like you said, with the fortune card, exactly as you explained it was perfect. So once you get to justice is the 10th card. So I'm sorry, is the 11th card. So the Fool has traveled through 10, and there are 10 after justice. Now, justice is often associated with the zodiac sign of Libra, no, which is right at the halfway point of the year, right? So the beginning of fall, September 21st, no, the fall equinox. Now, also remember we talked about the allegory of the chariot. If the Platonic ideal was if you have wisdom to control the reason, right? And you have strength to control the passions and temperance to control the desires, then you lead the just life. That's a very Platonic, very Western idea. And that's also involved with justice, So justice is an important card because after justice, it all goes south. Now, the Hanged Man is, I think it's probably one of the most fascinating cards and one of the most famous cards, no? The Hanged Man is that moment when you begin to wake up. When things, you look at the world and you go, it's not like they told me. That's why he's upside down. No, he's seeing things reverso world. No, what they told you was right. Go out, get a job, blah, blah, blah. It's not working. No, the money, it's not satisfying. The family life, maybe it's not working. That's the hangman. And what happens after you begin to wake up? The old self dies, and that's death. Those two cards, hangman and death, those two, the order of them is crucial. And I think you probably had that experience, no? When you began to kind of change, no? The old you dies. It's almost unrecognizable, no? That's the death card. Now, after death, you get that wisdom, the temperance that comes from learning about, you've learned a lot here. Temperance is learning that balance. Now, another interesting thing about temperance, are you familiar with the idea, that Jungian idea of inflation?
Don't think so.
So the Jungians have this idea that a lot of times when people, when they have spiritual experiences, I'm sure you've come across this, sometimes they feel like they know everything. They say, I'm the guru, I've woken up. And they begin to talk to all sorts of bullshit, no?
Yeah, I know. I'm familiar with that.
Temperance is that balance. You see how she has 1 foot on water and one on earth. The water and the wine. Now, in a Buddhist sense, there's a direct connection between this card and, remember the story when Buddha's under the tree, he's about to wake up, and Mara tempts him with women and power. And then finally, Mara asks a question, under whose authority do you say that you've been enlightened? And what does Buddha do? He touches the ground. And that's the moment when he wakes up. She's doing the exact same thing. She's putting 1 foot on water and one on land. It's just like Buddha touching the ground. You must be grounded. It's a very important card because this is the point where you get a lot of people who just, and it's natural. I've done it. I remember there were moments when I was talking all sorts of bullshit. No, when I go back and read some emails. I'm like, I said that.
Well, to kind of like recap, because I think this is excellent. You've got the first 7, which are tied to the material world and what we're told and conditioned that it is. This is what our culture is telling us. This is what our family is telling us. This is what our systems and everything's saying, including our senses, saying this is physical. But we also know that there's this other side. If you stop and listen, but we're taught to kind of suppress that idea. Then you start to have this strength or awareness that maybe there's something else, like that this materialism and this way that's been told to you isn't the only way. And no matter how much of the physical material acquisition and lust and lower level, sex, drugs, rock and roll, girls, boys, whatever, you are not going to be fulfilled. So the strength is, I think, initially to start to change that. Then you need to hermit, which is you kind of rethink everything, and you need some time to process all this. You don't just realize this and then all of a sudden it's all hunky-dory and it's great. So then your life gets switched upside down, which is perfect analogy. And what you thought you knew, you didn't, and now you're confused. So you have this death of the old you, which is value sets with how you view the world, with everything that you're looking at. Things are different now. And normally there's not a lot of people on the other side. So because you have viewed the world in this way, now you know everything, because it used to be this way and everything was material and that's what everybody's doing. But now, because it's different for you and it's a massive deal, you've had a huge awakening, you've had a huge shift that's literally 180 degrees, right side up to upside down. And then you tell everybody, but then you might go a little bit too far with it, because there is this other understanding and levels of this, in Buddhism and Zen, they'll talk about levels of understanding. Like once you get there, it's not like the truths are are so many. It's that there's such depth and layers of understanding that. And you're going to have to really remain humble, which I'm sure that one of these cards will come up. The humility of just not knowing that it's so beyond what you could possibly imagine. You don't know, but you know, things are a little bit different now, and you can help guide people to the other side rather than be, the know-it-all and just talk all kinds of shit and be like, why are you doing that job? You need to wake up and do whatever. I talk all kind of shit too when I was like in my early 20s, but now just like honoring my own process. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of recap that it's a very real process that I think people go through.
Oh yeah, exactly. And temperance it's really an important card, because even in art, for example, the idea of balancing these opposites, we talked about duality before. Here, what she brings, and remember, temperance, strength, and justice were 3 of the 4 classical cardinal virtues. So these are from before, or at least the time of Plato, no? These are very, very embedded in Western culture. Oh, we're still there. Okay, yeah. So, it's a really important card. But what comes after, well, yeah, exactly. You see, and notice the path behind her. See that there's kind of a path that goes behind her, and you see back in the distance those 2 hills.
Yeah.
That will come. You'll see that again. Just remember that, because we'll see that again in the moon card. The 1 foot in the water, the 1 on earth, and that foot touching the earth. And in the film, I actually use the Buddha myth where he touches the ground. That's Buddha touching the ground, and that balance. I just so folks remember, these cards, the Rider-Waite deck, these were made by Arthur Edward Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith. You can see a picture of Pamela right behind me. See her there?
They might be able to. It's a bit dark.
Yeah, but anyway, that's a famous picture of her. But I just want to give her credit, because I think she did all the illustrations, and I think she did a fabulous job. I love these. These are from 1909.
I'm also noticing for the first time a triangle in the middle of the shirt. I wonder if that has some significance.
Absolutely, no. And then you see she has the letters, the Hebrew letters above her shirt, and the tripart nature of the soul. The triangle.
That looks like Yahweh.
I think that's what it is.
Wow. Dang. Okay.
And so this card, it's an important card. Now, we should remember, this is the last card of the psychic level. So the lesson to be learned from the material level was the chariot, right? Control those forces. This is it's a little bit different. It's balance. It's finding that balance, not getting carried away. Now, the next level of cards we move to is the spiritual. Now we're on the purely spiritual path. Now, we're not saying that the material path is wrong, that there's anything bad about it. It's fabulous. But and they're all, in the end, when they all come together and you see them without time all together, that's when you get there,
What's the next card called?
The Devil.
Oh, the Devil card. It's going to look good all popped up. Whoa. It's intense.
There he is, that one. Yeah, that's the Rider-Waite Devil. So, remember the lovers. It was an angel with the man and the woman. Now we have the devil, the man and the woman, and they're chained together. It's not so happy, right? The devil is whatever's got its hooks in you. This is your shadow. Those parts of the ego that you can't see, that's the devil. Do you ever meet somebody and you immediately hate them? You're like, this guy, I just want to pop him. He just really annoys me. Generally speaking, what you're seeing is a reflection of the ugliest part of yourself that you've never really come to terms with. The devil is the one who pulls the mirror out and says, sorry, pal, that's you, buddy. And you're like, no. You ever have that happen and you go, oh my God, tell me I'm not like that. And then it kind of usually You stay home for 3 days and then you say, okay, whatever, I got to get over it. That's the devil. But you cannot, if you do not come to terms with all the parts of yourself. Now, I'm not saying you have to, and in the film I say this, you don't have to become a saint. No? And I think today we have a real issue with the devil, because we have a concept in our society now maybe that people have to be perfect, that you have to be absolutely pure. And that's, it's almost childish. That's not how people are. You have to come to terms with all the sides of yourself, try and find a balance, and for the most part, stay centered. That middle path. And when people remember, the devil can be the gangster, right? But the devil can also be, the person fighting, for example, a terrorist who thinks that he's saving the world. I'm gonna change the world, and I'm gonna, that's the devil. All of those things we've got to come to terms with, and the devil is a perfect mirror of yourself. That's why he terrifies us so much, because it's that part of ourselves we don't know. And in Buddhism, it's the angry Buddha. Those angry Buddhas that are screaming? That's the devil in Buddhism. Because we have to remember, the Vedic culture has a common root, that Indo-European root with what later became Greek culture. So there is a connection, even historically. If you go far enough back, the Vestas from Iran, right? All of that comes from an original culture. So you see these ideas appear again and again and again.
Those are all really great points, and a perfect way to look at the devil, because in Buddhism and again Zen or whatever, it's looking at your own mirror. So like when you're mad or something, or every time you're mad or you're upset or you're judging something, you can just have a little look and see, that's an opportunity for you to flip the mirror around on yourself. And it's so fascinating to see in the world how many people are really not great at receiving criticism. Now, not in the criticism that you're just talking smack, because that's usually the criticism people like to offer, is just talking some sort of smack. But like actually quality criticism, and even if it is smack talk, take a look to see if it's true. Because most people, what they do is they defend themselves really quickly without having a look, and they want to fire it back. That's not really, again, alchemizing or taking a look at that shadow or that mirror self. And I think that for the people that I've met that I respect and have a high degree of, let's say, awareness or mindfulness or however you'd like to term it, and have general more peace, they're really good at receiving criticism if some is offered, and just basically looking at themselves and their actions, and having the ability to do that with non-attachment. Just because you have the shadow, and I think you made a really great point in saying it's not that we're all perfect. We definitely aren't, and that's probably one of the problems we have, is we don't want to look at those dark parts because we're quote unquote not supposed to have them. We all have them. Once you get to a state of awareness or whatever. I can actually recall this specific conversation I had with a guy at Burning Man 2 years ago, and he was in the military, and he also, I think from reading between the lines, he was into like some sort of like gang type of stuff, and I think, I from definitely what he told me, and he like really did some bad things, and he was, when I met him, was in the process of reconciling all of those things that he did, that he was not proud of, that was his own mirror, right? For whatever guys that he was under, for whatever reason, he did a lot of bad things, is basically what we were getting to. And I remember that conversation saying, look, man, like, I know that you did some of these things and you're not proud of them, but this is when you were in Maya. This was when you were in illusion. You were doing, whether it was for your culture, whether it was for your friends, in the gang you were in, or the upbringing you had, or however you got to navigate being a kid and then a youth and trying to survive in this dangerous world of materialism and where it is frightening, then going into adulthood and making specific choices. Now you're at a point where you're recognizing that maybe the path that you're on or what you're doing isn't aligned with this new awareness. This isn't aligned with this justice, with this other side that you're now seeing. So now you have a choice. It's different now. If you do the same thing you did before, you're going to be judging yourself on that own mirror, you know? And that's all that is, you know, when we're looking at that mirror, we're judging ourselves. And I think that when we die, we judge ourselves because there's no hidden nook that we can look under. We know when we're being not good and not following our heart or being a total a-hole or whatever the case is. We know that. We know when we're operating in our own best interest, disregarding it. We're not going to be able to hide anywhere. We're going to judge ourselves. And so this card, I think, is a good example of somebody coming to grips with that, now recognizing, and that's the difference that I said. I drew a line in the sand, and I was like, look, this is the difference. You're on the other side now, and you know. Now you know. So you can try to find forgiveness for yourself, understanding that you're an illusion, but none of us are perfect. The only difference is now we can really just be very honorable and authentic with the choices we make, own up to them, and do our best to make the best aligned choices of what we know is right, and have our own sense of justice.
Yeah, yeah. Did you ever watch Breaking Bad, the show?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
There's one scene very at the end where he comes back and he sees his wife at the very end, and it's the last time he sees her. And it was very interesting. He wants to say something to her, and she looks at him and she says, "Don't you tell me you did this for the family." And he says, "No, I didn't. I did it because I was good at it." That's the devil, in the sense where he's finally being honest. He's finally being honest with himself. He's not doing this because he's trying to save his kids or his family. He's doing it because he wants to do it. And in a sense, just that honesty, and like your friend or this guy you met, the fact he can realize, look, I did a lot of stuff and I realize I'm not proud of it. But think of what he can gain from that. The humility, the lack of judgment when other people have maybe done some stuff. He can bring some humility to it. And he also has that courage. He knows that in very difficult situations, he can be courageous. But he can bring it in a positive way, no? He's not being controlled by it. He's not chained to it, no? And I think that's a really good example that you used of someone like that. Because none of us are saints. We all have our baggage. And it's kind of just opening it up and kind of cleaning it, putting it in the washing machine. All right? It's not going to come out a different shirt, but at least, it's not going to stink.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little bit,
Exactly. And that's kind of what I wanted to kind of bring up that point there was just that we're in a culture and a society, and like you look at old school Catholicism and things like that, where you have a dirty thought and you got to go confess it. You know what I mean? It's just like, we're coming from that perfection. It's like, we are flawed. We are all making mistakes, even, I'm sure the Dalai Lama has messed up thoughts every now and then, it's just like, nobody is perfect.
Right.
And when we can view that in a different way with a more empowering perspective, realizing the goal is an angelic perfection,
Right.
and that's what throws a lot of people off, and it creates a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. So, just looking at the mirror, making a healthy process of it, analyzing, changing that feedback. If we did it and we feel yucky on the inside, let's not do that again, because we know that doesn't align with what we're doing, and then move on. But don't beat yourself up for the next week or next month, and what most people do a whole entire lifetime.
Exactly. And a lot of people, like, I think especially you're in Canada, but in the United States now, politically, you have this incredible polarization. And if you look at both sides, what they're doing is they're projecting. If you listen to what one side says about the other, you see a lot of projection going on. And and the others they're both projecting their shadows on each other. It's really funny. You can go from like one TV show from one side to another from the other, and there's very little introspection going on. Very little kind of, all right, what's our side doing wrong? None of that. It's pointing fingers, you're doing this, you're doing that. That's the devil. That's the devil. And until, for example, in a cultural level where we can come to terms with who we are, what we do, we're not always perfect. We're not the best or the worst, right? You're not going to advance.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So I'm just looking at do you want to continue? What's the next one?
Yeah, I think can you bring up that big one again so we can kind of run through the
yes, I just
you remember you had that one with because the next card is a fascinating card. It's the
there we go.
Tower.
Bam.
There you go, that one. Yeah, there we go.
My desktop isn't the cleanest. I've been doing that. I need some help with that. All right, here we go. Back up.
Now, what's really interesting is once you get through those kind of last tugs on the ego, the Tower is a fascinating card. The Tower is the collapse of all dogma. The dogma dies. In Buddhism, this is where you slay the Buddha. In Christianity, this would be the moment when you realize maybe there wasn't even a Jesus. Maybe there was no guy named Jesus, but there is a Christ in me. You know, when the myth, when you kind of separate the history from the myth, a lot of people, when they do that, they just become atheists, no? But then a lot of people, when they'll come back, but they come back on a higher level. Also in Catholicism, this would be very much associated with the dark night of the soul, that night of doubts. And in Zen, this is really important, no? That you stop relying on all of the Zen dogma and you just feel it. You know? This is a very, very difficult card, extremely difficult. This is the one where you're ready to literally jump out the window as they're falling through. In my film, do you remember Fight Club, the film Fight Club?
Yeah.
Do you remember the last scene when all the buildings are collapsing and he's holding hands with her? That's what I use in the film. This is where it all comes down. But what's coming down here is your beliefs. Now, just one thing. If you look at the Hierophant, these are opposite cards, right? The Hierophant is kind of like the Pope, right? The structure. Here, everything that the Hierophant had, that he taught you, it's gone. And now, the next three cards, the star, the moon, and the sun, the three luminaries, right? It's still the night, but the star, you begin to, it's a complex, I don't want to have to go, it's in the film, it's kind of complicated, no, but this is kind of are you familiar with the Gnostic Sophia? Who kind of comes down in the Gnostic myth. She comes down and sort of saves mankind. This is a little bit that Sophia myth.
Yeah, what's the last Sophia? Something, a pistis or something like that?
Right,
that
the Pistis Sophia
is
a very famous Gnostic text.
Yeah.
The myth of Sophia, just quickly in Gnosticism, is she's wisdom, no? So she's one of the aspects of the higher realm. And looking away from the pleroma, she creates something not connected to her father, and that's this earth. Right. And the archons.
Yep.
Then she comes down to save us from the archons. That's a little bit this card. This is that contact with Sophia. Notice she has no clothes on. From here on, there are no clothes. There's no mask. There's no persona. We just are who we are. Now, the next two cards, the moon and the sun, this is real alchemy. No? The moon, our mother, what dies and is reborn. No? And the sun, the eternal. Think of the cross. The horizontal, what dies, the temporal, and the eternal. The sun and the moon. Now the fool has a new mother and a new father. And finally, judgment. This is the apocalypse. This is the end of time. It all dissolves. This would be in Zen, that moment of enlightenment. No? Time goes away and you're just completely connected. All truth emerges. Here I use Campbell using one of, what is it? It's one of the Hindu gods in a circle. and he has a flame in one hand and a little tap in the other. And it's the flame that burns the veil of time. Time ends. Because remember, time really is the enemy. We live in time, but the infinite, there is no time. There are no stories. There is no order. The order of these cards dissolves and they're all one. Right? And finally, the world. This is it. You live balanced between the four seasons, the four elements, the four gospels in the eternal realm. She's inside the circle. This could very easily, this card was actually Christ. But so they didn't get in trouble with the church. They use the feminine symbol here. But this is the Christ consciousness, that you've found that balance. And this is the Enlightenment. And that's basically the path.
That's awesome. I really like how this is laid out. You know, I've had like a few people walk me through briefly, but not to that level of depth. And as I explored each card, I always saw the value in looking at it and reflecting it within myself. But to be taken through the whole story, I think there's a ton of value because we can relate to where we are in the story. And what I found, interesting about the last part where you look at the tower and then the opposite is the emperor, the empress. Well, for me, what that kind of symbolizes is an authority outside of you in these cards, right? So you can look back in, Roman times or Jesus or whatever. It's just like, we know what's best for you. You should listen to us, and this is where you're going to get your beliefs from. And then you get all the way down to the end, and you're basically become your own savior. The Christ is within. You're your own savior, and you're your own guide. And you have this new mother and father as you go through. But you have to go through this whole entire process. And it's funny looking through the cards. Like from my understanding as a kid, I was always very just curious about like the whole entire process. So I was always like, well, how can there be so many different religions and one God? How, like, what is the root of this? This doesn't align or make any sense to me. And so so then I started looking at all of the different ones and what they were saying. And basically one of the roots of religions, when you look at, the real teaching, it's God or the deity is within you. It's not a bearded man or some sort of thing out there judging you and making you repent for all of your thoughts, which are like the natural experiences, these downfalls, these limitations, these shadows that we all have. You're not supposed to be ashamed of them. You're just supposed to recognize them and learn not to act on them, and then improve yourself and find your own sovereignty. You don't have to repent and burn in hell for all of eternity. So it's a little bit of a different way of thinking. And extremely powerful just to be laid out. And if you take each of these cards and the artwork, there's a lot of stuff in there. So I highly recommend people checking out each card and kind of looking at it in depth and exploring what the writing is and a little bit of the understanding, because you're going to kind of recognize and you're going to be able to take out some wisdom from the artwork, a little unconscious wisdom, a little message in there. And you're going to be seeding thoughts into your own consciousness.
Absolutely. These are really powerful archetypes. And what you can do if you get a deck like a Rider-Waite deck, is just lay these cards out in this order. I often use this order when I lay the cards out, and just follow them. And for example, if you watch the film, kind of look, I have the film on my website. The film is in long form. It's a very long film. It's about 2 hours and 40 minutes, but then I break it up in 27 parts. So you can watch it part by part. And now you might want to watch a card or two a day and just go through and really begin to connect. No, but one thing I wanted to get back to you, that the Tower card, everybody in their life, especially people who are a little bit older, have that moment when you stop believing something that is really crucial to you. No. For example, I traveled a lot when I was younger, and I remember one of my Tower moments was when, as an American, you have to realize that whole idea of American exceptionalism, it's not true. No, I mean, every country is exceptional, right? I mean, it's not like there's this idea that there's one great country and there's, but when you're a kid, they drill that into you. They drill that into you. And when you have to accept that, it's not easy. But when you, and there's a sadness to it because you lose something, you know? And this can happen on many, it can happen on, with political ideas, scientific ideas, worldviews, religious ideas. You know, it's very sad when you see people lose faith in God. It's something that supported them for a long time, and they realize there is no God. That's the tower. It's not a happy call. It's not a happy moment in life. So, you know, but it's an important moment because if we never lose those dogmas, we never grow. How are you going to develop, right?
Yep. 100%. You know, it's funny because the last podcast I did with Dr. Wysong, and part of it is the beginning is how do we deduce what is real, what is reality? And he has a big part on religion and how he went through that process, and he was very religious. And, you know, he got to the point where he didn't believe in what the religions were saying, but he always believed in this higher intelligence. You know, like that there was some sort of like he used the example of a school of fish, and there's this intelligence that moves them around, and we are all a part of that. And I kind of use the example of being in water, and we're, you know, nature or God or source is the water, and it's supporting us and it's supporting life and it's intelligent, but we're unaware of the water, but it is a part of us. So do you have that kind of understanding that there is some sort of intelligence? Like, what are your thoughts on like going beyond this kind of thing into like the exploring of what is consciousness? What does the tarot teach you about consciousness, God, universal intelligence, or anything of that nature?
Oh yeah. Because what happens is, and I like to take it from a Gnostic point of view. When you're young and they tell you, you know, I think it was William James who said religion was believing in someone else's spiritual experience. So you have a spiritual experience, you tell me about it, and I believe you. That's religion. When you have your own spiritual experience, you don't need religion. And you don't even need God in a sense, because you're connected to it, whatever it is, because God is always separate from us, no? And so you get a very kind of powerful kind of connection. I have to tell you, I mean, probably the most powerful, and I had this experience in the middle of making this film. I was always a big Terence McKenna fan. I love Terence McKenna. But I had never done DMT. And so in the middle of making this film, I had an incredibly powerful DMT experience where I was just sent to Palookaville. I mean, it was another universe. And you know, when you have an experience like that, I mean, it's, you know, it's just a different, it's like, you know, so what the cards and what comes in this path is people will have experiences like that. And when you're connected, you know, you don't even, the dogma, it goes beyond words, you know? So I have a lot of respect for people who say, I believe in God, or I'm a Christian, because I think that's spiritual. It shows they have a spiritual life. So I'm very, and if someone asks me, do you believe in God? I say, of course I believe. I do. Like when Jung in the film, I use that quote from Carl Jung. Have you ever seen that quote where they ask him, when you were a kid, did you believe in God? He's like, no, of course. And did you go to church? He's like, of course. And the guy, he's about 80 years old. And the guy from the BBC says, so do you believe in God now? And Jung laughs and he goes, I don't believe in God because I know, right? You stop believing in somebody else's experience because you've had your own experience, you know, and sometimes you don't even need words for it.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a really powerful statement. I've never heard it put that way. Can you say it one more time?
Oh, yeah, it's in the film. It's in the film on the section of archetypes. Yeah, he asked him, do you believe in God? And he says, no. He goes, I don't have to because I know.
Right. And it's, yeah, believing in someone else's experience. But like, I think, well, it's just that sentence, and then they try to project it on you. Like, that's the way. So like, let's say back in the day, or let's say right now, religion doesn't exist. And I've had an experience, which I have had, like wild ones that were make me know that there's something, it's a thing. And I was skateboarding, and, you know, I skateboarded my life, and then it happened at this park, and there was a rock nearby, and there's 4 birds, and that's when it happened. And so I tried to recreate that for each individual. It's like, you got to skateboard 20 times a day. Then you got to make sure that, you know, this is the diet that I was eating, and there's got to be 4 birds around, and this is the path. And if you don't do these things each and every day, then you can't have the experience that I had. And this is the path and the way. And the idea is that there are infinite paths home. And we all have that right. We are all connected, each individual one. And with the podcast that I just had in this one, because I like to tread lightly on, you know, people's belief systems and things like that. Even though you listen to this podcast, it can be challenging in every way. And that's kind of the point, is to explore these ideas, to explore in like a non-judgmental way, but to find the real business of like what's going on. But what I have found is that when you do have that experience that's so profound and unexplainable, is beyond words, like you said, it is. I've had them. They're far beyond words. And I know no one's going to convince me. Like, I remember when I was a kid, you know, I went over to my best friend's house at like 10 or 12. Shout out Ian Aikenhead. I hope you're doing well, my friend. You know, I was like, yo, bro, you got to come to church with me, because I can't be having you die and then go into hell for all of eternity. I love you way too much for me to let you go in hell. That's way too long, man. Like, this can't happen. And I was really concerned about it. And, you know, it's just that idea that's perpetuated that creates this fear. And, you know, for me, thinking about a higher intelligence or a thought process or a spiritual view, or actually even reading the teachings of Jesus, of Buddha, of Krishna, of religions and ideologies that I personally align with, it wouldn't have that in there. There's not a, like a prerequisite. You know, you don't have to do 400 push-ups and 20 Hail Marys or whatever thing that they add on top. You know what I mean? It's like you're all connected. You have the Christ within you, if you're going to go the Catholic way, or the Buddha within you, or whatever the case is, or the source, or the atheist within you. You could be an atheist if you want. But if you have one of these experiences, you're not going to go, oh, it's the bearded God, or it's the non-bearded God, or it's this other God. It's just like, okay, there's a source that I am definitely connected to, that is in me. And oh my God, I don't know anything. And I am in this, like, you know, it's like, if you look at what we monitor as far as senses go, we're only perceiving a little bit. So there's higher senses. And maybe it's like a dolphin waking up, and then the dolphin realizes it can jump out of the water or something like that.
Yeah. But I love your example about the skateboard and the rock. Like, I had it then, so you got a skateboard with the rock and the 4 birds. That's brilliant. Yeah, because you've got to, at some point. Now, I'm not against, let's remember what religion means. It means reconnect, religare. And what does it do? Religion has 2 things. It has a liturgy and it has a mythology. All right? And those help us. I was raised in extreme Catholic family, you know, and I'm very grateful for that, because it gave me someplace to start. Religion is fabulous. And now I can go back to Catholicism and I see things that I love. Yeah, I'm not anti-religion at all. But like you said, you got to go out there and experience it. And you can experience it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And, you know, I think that's a good point too, about the religious aspect. And I think that's where the real value is in community. It's in community and understanding, and they build these really strong communities, and you have these bonds, and those are all fantastic. And we want those. It's just a challenge is when, you know, there's these other things that go with it that might limit your perception and view of reality. And this love, which is, you know, I love it because God's love is unconditional. But if you don't come to church on this day and you believe this, I'm sorry, I can't love you, and we can't hang out because you're a Satanist, and F you. And if I see you, I'm going to stone you. Like, whoa, hold on a second. You know, and maybe it's not that far, but the idea of not being able to say hello to your fellow man or communicate or value them, even though they may believe something different. And I think that's where the danger lies, and where people of any belief need to just not need to, but could entertain the idea of just opening up and allowing someone to have a absolutely polar opposite belief, and just allow that belief to be, and then be able to connect with them on a human level, come over for dinner. I had this idea of, I wanted to do these Team Earth skits. And, one of them could be a Muslim moves to town, right? And then somebody's cruising down the street and then, throws a brick through their window and just says F you, you terrorist, piece of crap or something. And then, mix swear words and make it super fast. And then the neighbor comes over, right? And he looks and sees what happens, and he just walks over. He helps him clean up. He's like, don't worry, man, you're cool with me. And he high fives him, and it's all good. And then in the next scene, I don't know how this guy had his awakening or something, but all three are at dinner: the neighbor, the guy who threw the brick, and then the guy who helped. And then and then the guy who threw the brick is like, I'm sorry about that, bro. And then the Muslim guy's like, nah, it's all good. They're just eating food together. And it's so simple, but the idea of spiritual mastery and community, it's it's the simplest thing. It's getting along, right? You don't see 4-year-old kids doing stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's this ideology or belief that makes us act a bit crazy sometimes. And we got to address that aspect of it.
And remember, we are all three of those guys. There's a part of us that's throwing the brick, a part of us that's always the victim, and there's another guy who's trying to mediate the two, no? So when you finally realize, yeah, I've thrown a few bricks and I've gotten hit by a few bricks, and And one other thing that's so important nowadays that people get so confused on, mythology. There's a wonderful definition of mythology is what never was but always is. It's something that never happened, but that's true. People confuse mythology and history, and that's a very big mistake. It's apples and oranges, no? You can't, if you start doing that, if you begin to materialize something that's mythological, you get in all sorts of problems, People have to be really careful with that, because that's where our world is so fucked up in so many ways. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not allowed to cuss on this. Huh?
Well, you can't. It's just I've only had a few swear words, but I have to push the explicit button. I have to go find it, or put it a little. I'm gonna put a little. I've never done this, but I'll do some sort of stupid sound effect.
Sorry.
Well, that's how it's all good.
But you know what I mean? That when we can understand that these are stories, they're not history. But people confuse that. But there is truth in the story. No, that's the key of mythology. And people get confused with that, and it causes a lot of problems and tensions. No?
Yeah, and that it's kind of getting a little bit deeper for me on this just idea that I will just dive into because it's on my mind. But I studied the summer with a Native American elder. His name's David Lombert Senepas, really fascinating character. He's a scientist. He has put balloons into outer space, several of them, and was taught advanced math, chemistry, engineering, and all kinds of stuff. His history is 20,000 years old, so it has the Christ, some say, quote unquote, myth or story. It's got Buddha in there. It's got Western. It's got all this kind of stuff. And so I was like, what are the most important books that I can read? And he goes, the Bible. And I was like, well, what's the second one? He's like, the Quran. I was like, what? I was like, why? And I was like, I thought there's these weren't true stories. He's like, he's like, a lot of what's in there is true, but they embellish and they mess stuff up, how they use it. That's the big myth. But you need to understand how your culture, because he's Native American, so our culture or in gods and religion do not apply to him. You need to understand how your culture creates a God. And so you have that experience, and maybe Christ existed, maybe all these other things, but once they put the pattern, and then once you've got that pattern in there, like the skateboarding or the Hail Marys or repent for your sins or whatever, that's when that system can come in, and you can build these big churches and you wear these certain clothes, and this is the way. And since I've studied psychology and hypnosis and mass hypnosis, You know, you have the ritual, you have the songs, you have the fear, you know, you have this process now where we're all trying to go to the same place. And so it's looking at these systems from a really high point of view, like a really a broader understanding. And so it can go, you know, deeper into the idea of, you know, looking at like psychics and mediums and all that kind of stuff, which is my show is an open platform for. Now the challenge in talking to angels and mediums, that's all great and good. Now, if you're going to say, I'm talking to your person on the other side, and you know, in your own heart that you're using specific tricks that magicians use, that mentalists use, which I know, then that's not an honest thing. And like faith healing and stuff like that. And you look at Darren Brown and people like James Randi, they're looking at this and saying, hey, there are mystical things that happen in this world. There is an unexplainable element that we submit to. That's real. We all want to connect to this source, to this water, to this energy, to this collaboration, but they do have systems in mythology, like you said, mythos, and then it's implanted as reality and then used in a not so good way, usually to make money. So Absolutely. That's kind of what I wanted to share.
And just to say one thing about the cards, you can use the cards for playing a game. You can use them on another level for divination, and you can use them on another level to really help you open up. You see how in all of this, now there's a lot of people who use the cards for divination to just milk people for money. I mean, you have to be really careful. There are a lot of good people who read cards, but there are also a lot of people who are just making it's a business. You know? So be careful. Be careful.
And you know what I think? I know what I think it is actually now. I'm glad you said that because the clarity, right? Because it's a fine line. It's when you're talking about, I forget which card it was, the middle one, where you go too far with it, right? Because right. Because I've used them before and I love them, and I could get a tarot reading and I've loved them. They're awesome because all of this is applicable. If you just take time to think about any of these concepts, it's quality thinking time. Because it matters to you. You can see how that's playing out in your reality right now. That's quality stuff. But if you overshoot it and you're like, this is the one way and this is it, and then people will take that, they grab the jacket and they put on the throne and now they're special because they've got something that you don't have. That's, I think, where you just overshoot it a bit. It's a great tool. All of this stuff is awesome. Just look at if you're in the process of overshooting it, you know, because, you know, that's when it gets into the zone of like, not, you know, that's not cool, but that's also the process of learning and growing and evolving. So I don't know why I need to share that, but I think it's because the process now for me, look in my own research of finding out what are the limits of what we're capable of, self-healing, healing each other, telepathy, things like that. And who's out there taking that idea, overshooting it, making money, and who's out there trying to do the science on it, share procedures and empower people with knowledge, ancient knowledge, or uncommon knowledge that will support people's way of life and process.
And two things there's a danger. If you have a really powerful spiritual experience, you begin to identify with that I am that. And that's where you get the guru mentality. Come to me and I will enlighten you. You know, and Terence McKenna used to always say that. What do gurus usually want to do? Take your money and have sex with you, you know? You have to be because why? Because of the ego. Look at Osho, you know? I mean, at the end, riding around in a Rolls Royce with the gold and with this and with that, you got to be so careful because when you have these experiences, the inflation of the ego, it can crush you. It's very, very dangerous, no? Remember, Jesus said, no man can have two masters. It's either the ego or your loyalties lies beyond yourself. You know? So when you see one of the red flag should always be the massive ego. Beware.
Yeah,
that's what you say. Watch your wallet, and you know if you're a woman, be very careful. No, seriously, and I say that seriously because a lot of these gurus know I'll enlighten you, and they take all your money, and God knows what they do with you. So you have to remember, you got to keep that in the end, like you said, you know, you can't go to that where you were skateboarding and put the 4 birds there in the rock. It's not going to happen. In the Grail myth, they say you've got to find the darkest part of the forest and go in alone.
What's the Grail myth? Can you explain that?
Oh, the myth of the Grail, the Holy Grail.
I should not admit I don't know this, but please share.
Oh yeah, it's one of the most important medieval myths of well, there's a young knight, Parsifal. He finds this castle, and there's a Grail. It's a cup, and this cup, everything comes out of the cup. Eternal life, anything you want. It's the Philosopher's Stone that turns, no? And the Grail myth is basically the myth of Parsifal searching for this Grail. After he finds it, he loses it, and he goes back. And it's a very important part of my film. In the film, in the fool section, I identify the fool with Parsifal. But the Grail myth is it's an old Celtic myth. Of course, the Irish always fighting. It was a bowl. So they would take dead soldiers, throw them in this big cauldron, this boiling cauldron, and the soldiers would come out alive again. They'd send them back out to fight. It's a very ancient myth. It's a very fascinating myth.
Okay, so they go into the forest alone to find it. Can you summarize it, or did you?
Yeah. So at King Arthur's at the Round Table. No, this is all connected to King Arthur. At the end, they decide to go out and find the Grail. And what they say is, we're going to all leave now, and we will enter the forest alone, not together. We're going to enter alone at the darkest corner. Because especially in the Western tradition, we have to find it ourselves. A guru is not going to give you this. No one is going to open it up for you. They can guide you. They can give you a kick in the ass this way or that way, but they're not going to lead you, they're not going to lead you to the promised land. You have to find it yourself. That's the tower, that dark night of the soul. You have to go through that, and you have to go through that alone. No one can walk you through that. It takes courage, and it's not for everybody. But once you begin, it's hard to go back.
Yeah. Yep. I totally agree. And we've kind of ruined my idea of a sweet new modern religion of just skateboarding and bird watching.
But I love it, man.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. Man. Well, this has been really good and really entertaining. I think really valuable. Before we close it out, because I want to be just respectful of time, I'm curious of a couple things. One, you can elaborate if there's something that you wish that I had asked you, something that you wanted to cover a little bit more. I'm open. I got nowhere to go. You can feel free to bring that up. And then the last question that I would ask is, the idea, if I were to put you on the spot, and because you are aware that this is a process, I think that the 0 card, the Fool, which it goes into math too, which is interesting because studying with David, he's like 10 doesn't exist. It's and his math is 1 to 9, and it's really
10 is 1.
Yeah,
10 is you're just back at 1 again.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So it's a whole different thing, and this is the science he used to put balloons into space and stuff like that. So it obviously there's something to it. So if the Fool is 0 and that's the empty mind, what from knowing this process could you either like walk people through as like a concise idea of exploration, or how to use the cards in a way where they can get some cards and like get some value of it? You know what I mean? It was like, okay, this is like the summarized version of it, or here's some cards. Like how could they use cards to improve their life or the knowledge? It's a very mumbled up, crappy question, but maybe you can
I think it's a great question, because just to go back quickly, my path really it was initiated from the cards, because I began trying to understand the cards, and I got into astrology, I got into alchemy. It really pushed me forward on a lot of the Grail myth. So what I would do is, this is just my advice, if you're not really familiar with the cards, buy a deck of the Rider-Waite deck. separate out the major arcana, put the minor apart for the moment, and just lay them out on a table and just look at them. Just look at them and let them and try and lay them in that order. The 0 at the top, 1 to 7, right? 8 to, oh my God, now I'm losing my numbers. 8 to 15, right? And then 16 to 21. I think I've got the math there strange, but 7, 7, and 7. Then what you might want to do is, for example, you could watch my film, read a book, and you can start to learn the major arcana. Some of it's memorization, but and then if you watch, like in my film, I use a lot of music, art to try and feel the card, then study it a little bit, then go back to it. And remember, it's a path as well as an archetype. I would start there. Once you get there, you're going to find, if you begin to go down the rabbit hole, it's in a very deep rabbit hole, but that'll get you in the hole, so to speak.
Got it. Cool. I think that's really good advice. And I do think that exploration is really important because, like we're sharing, it's archetypes. And if you start to do your own research on these, myths, why do myths stay around so much? If you look at religion from a different perspective as an ideology and a philosophy with some powerful truths in there and some other stuff, you're widening your own awareness and you're empowering yourself to alchemize your own understanding. That higher consciousness and that awareness comes through thinking and analyzing in yourself, but you have everything you need. You don't even need the internet. There's a quote in the Bible. I don't know what it is, but I think it's all the idea is just like really all you need to do to know God is like intend it. Like you just have to honestly ask. And it doesn't happen like tomorrow. It's just like, okay, you know what? I want to know God, and like some God appears and he's in your face and all the answers to the universe. It doesn't work like that. It's like an honest asking and an honest seeker. An honest seeker will always find their path to the understanding in their own way. Maybe for you, it was ballet and Cheetos and, 4 possums in the park. And then that was like, holy crap, all of a sudden you've had this experience. But the idea and the lesson is in that middle round when we're talking about justice and authenticity and humility, that guideline. And if you can get into that guideline, that's really where the mastery is. That's where that lesson is. And if you can walk that path, your life should unfold in a way that when you look at your mirror, when you die, when you look at your daily actions and then your monthly actions, your yearly actions, your life action in that blip, you're the one that's like, you know what? You were pretty aligned. That was good. You didn't do all those things that you knew you shouldn't do. And things kind of went a little bit more smoothly for you in a way that you were creating, in a way that you were finding. You weren't empowering this other idea. You took control and monitored your way. I kind of went off in a rant. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, absolutely. And I like the way you say it. You don't really need anything. When I teach, I always tell my students, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask. If you ask the hard questions and really stick with them, that question will develop into another question, and you're never going to get all the answers. That's one thing you have to realize. It's going to continue forever. And I think even after we die, we continue to become aware. But ask those tough questions. And one thing that's so important, the moment when you're most stuck, when you've asked everyone, you're like, I cannot figure this out. That's the most creative moment. That's when you get the insight. So don't get frustrated. Remember, that moment is your most creative moment. Ask good questions and accept the challenge of those tough moments. Have a solid pair and just stick it out, and you'll get through it. You'll get through it. And once you get through the first time, it's wonderful because then the next time comes up and you have that confidence. See, I can get through this. I can get through this. Ask, like you said, ask good questions and you'll make it through.
Yeah, man, that's really good advice. And I think I'm glad that you said that, because I think that the ending of what I wanted to kind of reference was that the tarot are a really great place to dive into some research on what it is to be a human archetype. and they're going to open up the mind in different ways to these like ancient philosophies and these different ideas that are empowering thoughts. And the idea is to bring the power back in. If you're looking at any spiritual teaching, any consciousness teaching, esoteric Gnosticism, ideally it's empowering you and your connection to find that divine nature, God, universe, source, Jesus Christ, I don't care, whoever in you as that higher being connected to it, fully sovereign and amazing as you are, without needing to go repent your sins or go to so-and-so box to do a so-and-so thing to get saved by a so-and-so idea. You know, you're the thing. You know, you've always been it. You've always had it. And part of this is really mysterious. This, you know, we don't know. You know, the thing is, we don't know. It's like when you have those experiences, is like, you know that you don't know, so you're cool with that. And it's going to be always an exploration in honesty and humility. So again, I got caught on a rant, but I wanted to say that that's a good starting point. And I just appreciate you coming on and sharing and doing that. You can add on. You want to add on?
Oh yeah. I was going to say that was beautiful. That was perfect. That was it, man. I like it.
Ah, thanks. Yeah. So I haven't had a chance to check out the documentary, but I definitely am going to now. And I'm excited to have a peek. And as you explore that, you know, it's really a process of exploring the self. So I appreciate you putting that together, doing the research and putting that together in a way that's fun and that's entertaining, because that's a good start. You know, we can sit down and turn on some entertainment to spark a seed of our own personal development and personal growth. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, and it's completely free. It's on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and write The 21 Faces of God, and it'll pop up. And just remember, there's a long form version and a serialized version, so you can watch it in parts. Or if you're brave and you got a bottle, you know, you can watch the whole thing.
Awesome. And so where can people find more about you if they want to connect or ask questions or anything like that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. My website is thecactusland.com. And then in the About Us section, there's I think I have my email there and all that kind of stuff.
The Cactus Land?
No, that was the title of my novel, Cactus Land.
It's a really great title. I did not see that coming. It's a great ending. That's awesome. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for the work. Please stay in touch, and thanks everybody for watching.
I had a great time, man. Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Peace.
Take care, brother.